Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing.
Hi guys, welcome to episode 184 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad we're on this journey together. My message with each episode is really always one that I hope lifts you, but not in a faux kind of rah-rah way. I want you to come away with an authentic feeling that you're okay. And wherever you are right now, that's where you're supposed to be. And I know things can be tough out there, but they can also be really, really good. So I was listening to Abraham on YouTube this last week. I was listening on YouTube because the podcast was taken down, so I found new ways to hear this message. That's what we do, right? I talked about being upset for a minute about the podcast I listen to every morning going away due to copyright issues. But that made me grow. So something not so good happened, and I grew from it. That's what we do, right? We freak out a little bit at first, and then we adapt, and then we are so glad it happened because of the growth we experienced. Happens all the time if you really look around at your life. Anyway, sorry, got off on a tantrum there. So I was on YouTube listening to Abraham, and someone was talking about their grandmother, and their grandmother was saying to them how this world is so bad, and it's the worst it's ever been. And Abraham said something that really blew my mind, and it made me just deeply appreciate this life and all it has to offer us. She said, yeah, this is the worst the world has ever been, but it's also the best it's ever been. So, okay, yeah, we've all heard that, right? I've heard that, and that seems very rah-rah to me. But then she really blew my mind because she likened it to a buffet. If you go to a buffet and there are 10 things on it, you'll like a few and you'll not like a few. No big deal, right? But if you go to one of those huge buffets, you know the ones I'm talking about, and there's 10,000 things on the buffet, there's a whole lot you're going to dislike and a whole lot you're going to love. That's where we are, isn't it? There's a lot on our buffet right now, and it can feel very overwhelming, which is why it's important to curate what you let in. So that grandma, the one that was saying the world is the worst, if she's sitting in her chair watching the news all day, then it would feel like the world's coming to an end because that's how the news people make money, by keeping you glued to their channel through fear. But picture this. What if that same grandma woke up, did some morning stretches, listened to a positive podcast, meditated for 15 minutes, worked in her garden for an hour, had a visit from her grandchildren, listened to all the fun things they have going on, then joined her friends down the hall for a game of cards where they laughed and talked about the best books they've been reading. And then she had a really good night's sleep. When you visit her the next day, the conversation's going to be really different. Your thoughts have more to do with life than your circumstance. And everyone has circumstances, and these are things that take place over which we have no control. How we view those circumstances is ultimately what dictates the quality of our life. So I'll give you an example. The lockdowns for COVID. Some people actually thrive because of them, and some were distraught. Same circumstance, different thoughts. Now, my older sister is kind of a germaphobe, and she's also an extreme homebody. That's where she wants to be, at home. So the lockdowns actually made her happier than before because it allowed her to do what she always wanted to do anyway, just be home. For me, not so much. I'm like a caged animal. I couldn't get out fast enough. I had to really manage my thoughts. Now, she also likes the mask. She wishes they would stay, that everyone would wear them all the time in public places so she didn't have to breathe everyone else's air and germs. Now for me, I talk a lot about on my podcast how I didn't like it at all. If I never see another mask in my life, it would be too soon. And here's the thing. I love my sister, so I can look at her thoughts about the masks and staying home and still love her and not judge her because I understand her. And I know where she's coming from with it. That's much harder to do with strangers. But maybe we could work on that. Giving a stranger the same grace you give your best friend or family. They have their reasons they do what they do, and it has nothing to do with you. The whole world had varying levels of circumstances around COVID, and there were very different thoughts about it. But let's just be okay with letting other people do their thing and you do yours. And it's okay if you aren't a naturally optimistic person. Not everyone is. Now, I was born naturally pretty optimistic, and I have to tell you, I still have to manage my thoughts about things. It's crazy what your brain will do to you if you let it. So I'm having my parents for dinner this weekend. I mean, they haven't seen my renovation yet, and I'm excited for them to see it. Now, along with inviting them, I also invited my older sister and my brother. And they both had told me, they were like, okay, we're out of town, so we can't come. Now, my brain started throwing thoughts at me like, are they really out of town, or do they just not want to get together? Or they don't care about our family connection the way I do. These are actually the thoughts that were coming up for me. I didn't voice them, but I noticed them. Once I realized that those are my thoughts, I noticed how that was making me feel, and it was not good. But then I laughed and I said, oh, you know what, brain, you're just being silly. This dinner was last minute. I just arranged it a couple of days ago. Of course, people already have plans. And on top of that, Eric and I will get my parents to ourselves, which is fun too. You see, nothing about the circumstance changed. I just changed the way I was thinking about it. We can do this with everything. The key is to be aware, to notice the subtle thoughts that have always been there and are affecting everything you do. There's so much that's not great in the world, but there's so much that is great. It all depends on the thoughts you have about it and what you choose to focus on. And there's always going to be people that thrive during bad times, and there will always be people that don't thrive during really good times. It ultimately depends on you. In the ocean of life, there's a boat of people choosing to believe the world is the worst it's ever been. And there's also a boat of people choosing to believe it's the best it's ever been. Both are correct. And you have the choice to decide which boat you want to be on. My challenge to you this week is to notice your consistent, subtle thoughts and then think about which boat they'd put you on. I love you guys, and I'll talk to you in a few days.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.